My jealous mom couldn't handle that I got pregnant before her favorite daughter, so she invited my ex to ruin everything, but what he revealed about her past made everyone turn against her. My mother, whom I called Jackie, couldn't accept my pregnancy happened before her favorite daughter, so she brought my ex to my baby shower. What he revealed made her utterly regret her actions. It's a bit peculiar, honestly, because you'd typically expect me to refer to her as Mom, like most children do. However, she's always been insistent that Leah, my half-sister, and I never use that term. I suppose in her mind, Mom sounds like a title for someone older, and she's just never been able to see herself that way. She's mentioned more than once that she feels too young to be called a mother, as if that designation might burden her. So, it's always just been Jackie, as if we're merely neighbors or friends rather than her children. Jackie was in high school when she became pregnant with me, and the pregnancy wasn't something she, or my biological father, Avery, had planned. In fact, she consistently calls it an accident, a word that has, whether she realizes it or not, profoundly impacted me over the years. Jackie and my dad were high school sweethearts, but they were young, impulsive, and not exactly considering the repercussions when they ended up in this situation. When my dad discovered Jackie was pregnant, he made it clear he wasn't interested in being her partner. He agreed to provide child support and to be involved in my life, but that was the extent of his commitment. He wasn't going to play house with her or continue their romantic relationship. This devastated Jackie, though she doesn't always admit it. She had expectations, however naive, about what their relationship might become. Perhaps, in some small way, she believed having a baby would make things more serious between them. But my dad didn't view it that way, and that reality shattered her. After I was born, things between Jackie and my dad didn't get better. If anything, they worsened. Jackie couldn't let go of the resentment she felt toward him, and it showed every time he visited. My dad would come to pick me up or just stop by to spend time with me, but instead of keeping things civil, Jackie would almost always initiate an argument. She seemed to seek out reasons to quarrel, even when there was nothing to argue about. She would lash out at him, sometimes over trivial matters and other times over larger issues, mostly revolving around her anger that he didn't want to be with her. I was too young to truly understand what was happening then, so I didn't question her whenever she spoke poorly about my dad. Jackie would say things like, "He doesn't love you enough to marry me," or "Fathers are supposed to take care of their families, and your dad's just a deadbeat." As a child, I couldn't fully process what she was actually communicating. But as I grew older, I started seeing things differently. I began to realize that my dad wasn't the villain Jackie portrayed him to be. In fact, he was quite the opposite. He was dependable. He visited me every weekend without fail, always on time and always eager to spend time with me. He never missed a child support payment, and I could tell he genuinely loved being around me. I could feel his care for me, even if his relationship with Jackie was strained. The more I matured, the more I understood that my dad was doing everything he could to be a good father. Despite the circumstances, he wasn't flawless, but he certainly wasn't the deadbeat Jackie claimed. He was there for me, and that was what truly mattered. When I was 6 years old, Jackie met Mike, the man she would eventually marry and now calls the love of her life. It was somewhat surreal watching her with him, seeing how different she could be. Mike is a genuinely nice person, very easygoing, and from the beginning, he accepted me as part of his life without any hesitation. He's always treated me like his own daughter, which has meant a great deal to me, especially considering how complex my relationship with Jackie has always been. Mike was never the problem. He was steady and kind, and he made an effort to be there for me in ways Jackie often didn't. Not long after they married, Jackie became pregnant again, this time with my half-sister, Leah. When Leah was born, I was overjoyed. I loved her instantly, and over the years, we've become incredibly close. She's my best friend, and I'd do anything for her. But as much as I adore Leah, there's no denying that Jackie's treatment of us has always been painfully unequal. From the moment Leah was born, it was obvious she was Jackie's favorite. Jackie lavished Leah with love and attention in a way I never experienced. I would observe them together, Jackie lighting up around her, doting on her, buying her pretty little dresses with matching shoes, ensuring she had every toy or thing her heart desired. Leah was, and still is, the apple of Jackie's eye. Meanwhile, I felt like an afterthought. Jackie was distant, almost cold toward me. She would hardly ever spend time with me, and when she did, there was this underlying tension, as if my very presence bothered her. Of course, it made me jealous. How could it not? I watched my sister receive all the love and attention I yearned for from Jackie, and it hurt. It's not as if I didn't try to win Jackie's affection, I did. But my requests for things, whether something as simple as a new dress or a toy I liked, were usually ignored or brushed off. Sometimes, instead of getting something new, she'd hand me my cousin's old belongings and tell me I didn't need anything new anyway, and that I should stop wasting unnecessary money. It's hard to articulate how much that kind of favoritism can sting. It wasn't just about the material things. It was the emotional distance, the way Jackie seemed to reserve all her warmth and affection for Leah, leaving me feeling like an outsider in my own family. And even though I love Leah with all my heart, I'd be dishonest if I said it didn't hurt to see my own mother treat her so differently, as if Leah were her only child. Every year, when Leah's birthday arrived, it was a major event, celebrated with a level of extravagance that clearly showed how much Jackie adored her. The parties were always filled with decorations, gifts, and an excited crowd of family and friends. There would be balloons, cake, and a lot of fuss made over Leah, and you could tell that Jackie poured her heart into making those days special. It was the kind of birthday every child dreams of. In contrast, my birthdays always felt like an afterthought. I was never allowed to invite friends over for a party, not once. Some years, the extent of my celebration was Jackie ordering a pizza, and that was it. There was no cake, no decorations, no excitement, just a simple pizza delivery, and the day would pass without much attention. I remember how much it stung to see the stark difference between the way Jackie celebrated Leah's birthdays and the way mine were barely recognized. It felt like another reminder that I wasn't as important to her, that I didn't deserve the same love or effort. When I got older and started pointing out to Jackie how unfair it was, she didn't try to explain herself or make things right. Instead, she'd snap back at me with a cold response like, "Go cry about it to your dad," as if he were somehow to blame for the way she treated me. She'd say things like, "This is all his fault," shifting the blame away from herself and onto him, as if her favoritism had anything to do with my dad's actions. It was her way of deflecting, of refusing to acknowledge the hurt she was causing. My dad, though, always tried to compensate in whatever way he could. He knew how much birthdays meant to me, how special they should feel. And he never failed to be the first one to call me and wish me a happy birthday right at midnight. He'd buy me gifts and try to make the day feel special. Even if it wasn't the same as having a big celebration, he noticed, too, how differently Jackie treated me and Leah, and it upset him. I remember a couple of times when he tried to talk to Jackie about it. He wasn't confrontational. He just wanted to understand why she couldn't treat us both with the same love and care. But those conversations never went well. Instead of listening, Jackie would lash out, and it would quickly turn into a screaming match. She'd tell him to keep his opinions to himself and that he had no right to comment on how differently she raised Leah because she was married to Leah's father, not him. She made it clear that, in her eyes, the fact that Mike was Leah's dad gave her permission to treat Leah better. It was as if my dad's involvement in my life automatically disqualified me from receiving the same level of love or attention. That hurt more than anything. It felt like I was being punished for something that wasn't even my fault. When I went away to college, it became even clearer how little my presence truly mattered to Jackie. If anything, I think she was relieved to finally have me out of the house. I noticed it in the way she acted, like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. She rarely called, and visits from her were practically non-existent. The few times I did hear from her, it felt more like an obligation on her part rather than any genuine desire to know how I was doing. Ironically, Mike, Leah, and my dad made far more effort to stay connected with me than Jackie ever did. They visited me more often, checking in to see how I was settling into college life, and making sure I wasn't feeling alone. It was comforting, but it also hurt to see how little my own mother seemed to care. The lack of love and attention from Jackie stung deeply, but I tried not to dwell on it too much. I kept hoping that maybe in time, whatever issues she had with me and my dad would fade away, and we could eventually have some kind of normal relationship. It was during my final year of college that I met Ian, my ex-boyfriend. He and I became serious pretty quickly, and for a while things between us were great. He was supportive and made me feel seen, which was something I didn't often experience with my own family, especially not from Jackie. When I graduated college, it was a big moment for me. My dad, stepdad, Leah, and even Jackie came to celebrate with me. But to be honest, Mike had to convince Jackie to come. I knew she wouldn't have shown up if it hadn't been for his persistence. Still, it meant something to have them all there on such an important day. That day, Jackie met Ian for the first time, and to my surprise, she seemed almost captivated by him. I didn't think too much of it at first, but then she started making these strange comments, like how she couldn't believe someone as handsome as Ian was with someone like me. The first time she said it, I tried to shrug it off. After all, I'd gotten used to Jackie making offhand remarks that were more hurtful than she probably realized. Or maybe she did realize, I'm not sure. Either way, I let it go, telling myself it wasn't worth the energy to confront her. But then she did it again. We were all having lunch together after my graduation ceremony, and right there in front of Ian and the rest of the family, she made another similar comment, implying that I wasn't attractive enough to be with him, and joked if I was perhaps his charity case. This time, it wasn't just hurtful, it was downright humiliating, especially because she said it in front of Ian. I could feel the embarrassment rising in my chest, and I wasn't going to let it slide again. So I turned to her as calmly as I could and told her that the way she was talking about me and my boyfriend was creepy, and that I was more than just my looks. I wanted her to understand how inappropriate and uncomfortable her comments were, not just for me, but for everyone at the table. Ian looked embarrassed by her comments as well. Even my dad, who usually tried to stay out of confrontations with Jackie, was clearly annoyed. He shot her a few warning glances, probably hoping she'd get the message, and stop before things escalated. I could tell he didn't want to make a scene in front of Ian, but he was just as upset as I was. It wasn't just a small, thoughtless comment. It was another example of how she always seemed to find ways to put me down, even during one of the most important moments of my life. Apparently, after that graduation day, my mom and Ian became Facebook friends, which took me by surprise. Ian told me that she had sent him a friend request, and he asked if it was okay for him to accept. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it, so I said it was up to him. He accepted her request just to be polite, because he knew as well as I did that if he didn't, she would bring up this issue in front of everyone else if she ever saw him next. It did feel odd to me that my mom, who had barely shown any interest in my life while I was away at college, suddenly wanted to stay connected with my boyfriend on social media. Over the 3 years that Ian and I dated, my mom maintained a polite, if distant, relationship with him. She would check in on him every now and then, leaving the occasional comment on his posts or sending him brief messages on Facebook. It wasn't anything overtly suspicious, but there was always an air of familiarity between them. Jackie never gave me that kind of attention, but with Ian, she seemed more engaged. During my relationship with Ian, he did point out to me once or twice how he felt my mom was outright jealous of me and my life. He started pointing out all the little ways Jackie acted around me that made it seem like she was in some kind of competition with me. Whether it was the way she belittled me, her tendency to dismiss my accomplishments, or even her weird fixation on my relationships, I was taken aback. Jealous of me? The idea had never crossed my mind, and I had always chalked up her behavior to general hostility or unresolved issues with my dad. But Ian was insistent. He could see it from the outside, the way she would subtly undermine me and how she seemed almost bothered by the idea of me being happy with someone or successful in my career. At first, I resisted the idea. It was hard to accept that my own mother could feel something like jealousy towards me. But the more Ian brought it up, the more I started to notice the patterns myself. Whether it was about my looks, my relationships, or even my achievements, Jackie always found a way to make me feel smaller. And when I thought about it from the perspective that maybe, just maybe, she was jealous, it all started to make sense. After that realization, I began to grow more cautious around Jackie. I found myself guarding my emotions more tightly, not letting her comments get under my skin as much. I wasn't sure what to do with the knowledge that my own mother might be jealous of me, but it definitely changed the way I interacted with her. I couldn't look at her behavior the same way anymore. What once felt like indifference or coldness now seemed more like a twisted sense of competition, and that thought, more than anything, made me distance myself emotionally from her even further. Ian and I broke up after 3 years of dating. Our breakup was pretty amicable. We both knew that while we cared about each other, our lives were moving in different directions, and it was time to part ways. We promised to stay friends, to keep in touch. But as is often the case, life got in the way. I got busy with my own life, and Ian did the same. Before long, we lost touch completely, and that chapter of my life quietly closed. Then, 2 years ago, I met Phil and everything changed. He was, and still is, everything I could have ever wanted in a partner. Phil is kind and thoughtful, and makes me feel valued in ways I hadn't experienced before. With him, things felt right. We talked openly about our dreams and our future, and for the first time, I started to see a real path towards the kind of life I wanted. A life filled with love, stability, and eventually, a family. I'm truly happy with him, something I don't take for granted. This year, we found out I was pregnant. It wasn't something we had planned for right away, but it wasn't an unwelcome surprise either. Phil and I had always dreamed of starting a family, and while the timing may have been unexpected, the excitement was real. We were overjoyed and immediately began planning for this new chapter in our lives. The first thing we did was get married. It was a small, intimate ceremony, just close friends and family. Leah, of course, was my bridesmaid. Having her by my side on that day meant the world to me. Jackie, my mom, attended the wedding, but throughout the ceremony, I could sense her disapproval, though I wasn't entirely sure why. She looked frustrated, like something about the whole event bothered her. Later, when we had a moment alone, she finally let her feelings spill out. She told me, rather bluntly, that she never wanted me to marry someone like Phil. In her mind, I was making some kind of mistake by being with him. And then she went on to tell me how she had actually hoped I would get back together with my ex-boyfriend, Ian. I couldn't help but laugh when she said it. It was such an absurd suggestion, so out of touch with the reality of my life now. I thought maybe she had had a little too much to drink at the wedding and was just speaking nonsense. The idea that she was still stuck on my ex when I had moved on and found happiness with Phil was almost laughable. I tried to ignore her comments, like I've learned to do over the years. But deep down, it did bother me that even on one of the happiest days of my life, my wedding day, Jackie couldn't just be happy for me. Instead, she had found a way to criticize and make me feel like I wasn't living up to her expectations. But this time, thankfully, I had other things in my life to focus my energy on. I had Phil by my side, a baby on the way, and for once, I chose to focus on the love and joy in my life rather than Jackie's negativity. After Phil and I got married, we decided to wait until the wedding was over to announce the big news. I was pregnant. We both felt it was right to share this news only after our wedding so that nobody could question us. My dad, Leah, and Mike were thrilled when we told them. They were genuinely over the moon for me, and their happiness made that moment even more joyful. But as expected, Jackie, my mom, had to throw in her own brand of negativity, as if she couldn't just let me have that happiness without a sour comment. She started by questioning whether I was sure about having a child, making remarks about how I might regret jumping into motherhood without first enjoying married life with Phil for a few years. Her words took me by surprise. It felt like she was projecting her own regrets or unresolved issues onto me. I couldn't believe that, even in this joyous moment, she couldn't support me without making me second-guess myself. But this time, I didn't let her words slide. I was becoming a mother, and the thought of her trying to belittle or overshadow my happiness, and worse, potentially doing the same to my child, made me stand my ground in a way I never had before. I calmly reminded her that I was not her, and that I would never regret having a child with a man I love. I made it clear that no matter what the timing was, I had no doubts about becoming a mother. For so long, I had let her walk all over me, picking apart my decisions, making me feel small. But this time was different. I wasn't going to allow her to manipulate or undermine me anymore, especially when it came to my family. That's when Jackie revealed her true feelings. She said that she couldn't believe that I, the daughter she had always treated as second best, was the first to get pregnant and give the family its first grandbaby, and that she had always expected Leah to win. As if this wasn't enough, Jackie then went on to justify that she just wasn't ready to be a grandmother so soon and accused me of trying to ruin her reputation and her social circle by having a baby so soon after getting married. Hearing her say that was like a slap in the face. Not only did she outright insult me, but now my pregnancy, my joy, was somehow an inconvenience to her image. It was a shocking display of selfishness, even for Jackie. She wasn't worried about me or my future as a mother. She was only worried about how she would look to her friends. At that point, I had had enough. I firmly told her that if she truly felt that way, she wouldn't have any role in my child's life. I told her that if her reputation was more important than being a supportive mother and grandmother, then she was officially banned from my child's life, and I would be going no contact with her. The conversation quickly escalated into a huge argument, with emotions running high on both sides, but I asked her to leave. Ever since then, Jackie has been sending me multiple messages trying to guilt-trip me into apologizing to her for my outburst. She says she just wanted to be truthful about how she felt and has accused that my pregnancy hormones have made me overly sensitive. She thinks as my mother, she has every right to voice doubts about my quick marriage and pregnancy. Should I just cut Jackie off from my life after the way she has treated me?